In a small, quiet town nestled in the southern United States, life moved at a slow and predictable pace. The streets were lined with modest houses, and everyone seemed to know each other's names. It was the kind of place where people waved as they passed by, and neighbors often shared homemade pies over fences. But not everything in this seemingly idyllic town was perfect. Beneath its calm surface lay struggles that many chose to ignore or hide. Officer David Grayson was one of those individuals who stood out, not because he wanted to, but because his appearance made it impossible for him to blend in. His face bore deep scars from a fire that had ravaged his home years ago. One side of his face was smooth and unmarked, while the other was a patchwork of twisted skin and uneven features. To strangers, his appearance could be unsettling, even frightening. Children would sometimes point and whisper when they saw him walking down the street, and adults often avoided making eye contact. Yet, despite the stares and cruel comments he endured, Officer Grayson remained steadfast in his duty to serve and protect. David had always believed that being a police officer wasn't just about enforcing laws. It was about helping people feel safe, heard, and valued. Growing up, he had faced his own share of hardships. As a child, kids teased him mercilessly after the accident that left him scarred. They called him names like monster and freak, leaving him feeling isolated and unworthy. But instead of letting their words crush him, David found solace in books and stories of heroes who overcame adversity. Those tales taught him that true strength came from within, and that no amount of cruelty could define who he was, unless he let it. Years later, when David became a police officer, he vowed to use his experiences to help others who felt marginalized or misunderstood. He carried himself with dignity, refusing to let his scars dictate how he lived his life. Still, there were moments when the weight of judgment pressed heavily on him. Late at night, after long shifts patrolling the streets, he would sit alone, in his apartment, staring into the mirror. Sometimes he wondered if people would ever see past his disfigurement and recognize the person underneath. But then morning would come, and David would put on his uniform ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. One chilly autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Officer Grayson drove through the quieter parts of town. These neighborhoods were less affluent than others, filled with weathered buildings and cracked sidewalks. Streetlights flickered weakly, casting shadows that danced across the pavement. Though crime rates here were low, David liked to check in regularly, ensuring residents felt supported and secure. As he turned onto a narrow road lined with aging apartment complexes, something caught his attention, a small figure sitting alone on the curb. At first glance, it looked like a bundle of clothes abandoned by someone in a hurry. But as David slowed his patrol car, he realized it was a boy, no older than 10. The child sat hunched over, arms wrapped tightly around his knees, clutching what appeared to be a crumpled school notebook. His oversized hoodie swallowed his tiny frame, making him look even smaller against the vast emptiness of the street. Curiosity tugged at David, urging him to investigate. Pulling over to the side of the road, he stepped out of his car and approached, cautiously. The sound of his boots tapping against the pavement caused the boy to glance up nervously. When their eyes met, David saw fear flash across the child's face. It wasn't hard to guess why. The boy had clearly noticed David's scars. For a moment, the youngster froze, unsure whether to run or stay put. "It's okay," David said, softly, lowering himself to one knee so he wouldn't appear too imposing. "I'm not going to hurt you." His tone was gentle, almost soothing, designed to ease the boy's anxiety. Slowly, the tension in the child's posture eased, though. His grip on the notebook remained firm. After a few seconds of silence, David tried again. "My name is Officer Grayson. What's yours?" The boy hesitated before answering in a barely audible voice. Marcus." "Well, Marcus," David continued, offering a small smile. "What are you doing out here all by yourself? It's getting pretty cold." Marcus shrugged, avoiding eye contact. Just sitting." David nodded, sensing that pressing too hard might scare the boy away. Instead, he decided to take a different approach. "You know, I used to sit outside when I was your age, too. Sometimes it helps clear your mind, doesn't it? Marcus glanced at him briefly, surprised that an adult, a police officer no less, seemed to understand. Emboldened, he muttered, "Yeah, I guess." Encouraged by this response, David leaned back slightly, giving Marcus space to open up if he wanted to. After several minutes of silence, broken only by the distant hum of traffic, Marcus finally spoke. "People make fun of me," he admitted, his voice trembling. "At school, they say mean things, but because I stutter." David's heart sank hearing this. He remembered all too well what it felt like to be ridiculed for something beyond his control. Wanting to reassure Marcus, he replied, "I get it. People can be cruel sometimes, but you know what? That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You're special just the way you are." For the next hour, David listened intently as Marcus poured out his frustrations and fears. The boy explained how classmates mocked him relentlessly, calling him names and laughing whenever he struggled to speak. Teachers tried to intervene, but the teasing persisted. Over time, Marcus withdrew from his peers, preferring solitude to the sting of rejection. Drawing comfort from his notebook, he filled its pages with sketches and short stories, creative outlets that allowed him to express himself without judgment. By the time their conversation ended, Marcus seemed lighter, as though sharing his burden had lifted some of the weight off his shoulders. David promised to visit him again soon, hoping to build trust and offer guidance. As he returned to his patrol car, he couldn't shake the image of Marcus sitting alone on that curb, vulnerable yet resilient. Little did David know, this chance encounter would set the stage for a transformative journey, one that would change both their lives forever. Over the next few weeks, Officer David Grayson made it a point to visit Marcus regularly. Each time he came, he brought something small, a bag of candy, a comic book, or even just a warm smile, to show the boy that he cared. At first, Marcus was hesitant, unsure whether to trust this scarred man in uniform. But as their conversations grew longer and more frequent, Marcus began to realize that David wasn't like the other adults who either ignored him or dismissed his struggles. This policeman truly listened, offering advice without making Marcus feel judged. Their meetings often took place outside Marcus's apartment building, where they'd sit on the steps or walk around the nearby park. During one such outing, David noticed Marcus clutching his notebook tightly, almost protectively. "You seem to really love that thing," David said casually, nodding toward the worn-out spiral-bound book. Marcus hesitated before opening it slightly, revealing a sketch of a spaceship soaring through a starry sky. I like drawing," he admitted shyly, "and writing stories." David's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "That's amazing. You're talented, Marcus. Do you mind showing me some of your work?" At first, Marcus shook his head vigorously, embarrassed at the thought of sharing his creations. But David didn't push. Instead, he changed the subject, talking about his own childhood hobbies. How he used to draw superheroes and write letters to imaginary friends when he felt lonely. Slowly, Marcus relaxed, intrigued by the idea that someone like David, a grown man with a badge and gun, could also enjoy art and storytelling. By their third meeting, Marcus finally mustered the courage to flip open his notebook. Inside were pages filled with vibrant sketches, fantastical creatures, sprawling landscapes, and detailed portraits of people whose faces seemed alive on the page. There were also snippets of handwritten stories, tales of brave adventurers overcoming impossible odds. David flipped through each page carefully, his admiration growing with every turn. "These are incredible, Marcus," he said sincerely. "You've got a gift." Marcus beamed, his chest swelling with pride. No one had ever praised his artwork before, and hearing such kind words from David meant the world to him. For the first time in months, he felt seen, not as the stuttering kid everyone teased, but as someone capable of creating beauty. Inspired by Marcus's talent, David decided to nurture it further. On their next visit, he arrived carrying a brand new sketchpad and a set of colored pencils. "I thought we could try something fun today," he suggested, holding up the supplies with a grin. Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief. For me? He stammered. Yes, for you, David confirmed. Let's see what we can create together. They spent the afternoon sitting under a tree in the park, sketching whatever came to mind. David, though not particularly skilled at drawing, gave it his best effort, laughing at his clumsy attempts to recreate Marcus's intricate designs. Meanwhile, Marcus poured his heart into his work, crafting a stunning image of a knight battling a dragon atop a cliff. The scene brimmed with emotion, capturing both the intensity of the fight and the hope of victory. As the sun dipped lower, in the sky, casting golden light across the park, David leaned back against the tree trunk and studied Marcus's finished piece. "This is brilliant," he said, his voice full of awe. "You should enter an art contest someday. People need to see your work." Marcus blushed, shaking his head. No one would care." "Don't say that," David replied firmly. "Your art speaks louder than words ever could, trust me. I know what it's like to feel invisible. But once people see what you're capable of, they won't be able to look away." Though Marcus still doubted himself, David's confidence in him planted a seed of possibility. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future where his talents might shine brightly instead of being hidden away. Word of David and Marcus's friendship began to spread throughout the neighborhood. Neighbors who initially questioned why a police officer was spending so much time with a young boy soon realized there was nothing suspicious about it. They saw how David encouraged Marcus, how he laughed with him and treated him with respect. Some residents admired David's dedication, recognizing the positive impact he was having on the boy's life. Others remained skeptical, whispering behind closed doors about whether his intentions were truly pure. One evening, as David walked Marcus home after another productive day of drawing, they encountered Sarah, Marcus's mother. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching them approach. Her expression softened when she saw the smile on her son's face, a sight she hadn't witnessed in far too long. "Officer Grayson," Sarah greeted him, her tone polite but cautious. "Thank you for spending time with Marcus. He hasn't been the same since everything started happening at school." David nodded, understanding the weight of her unspoken words. "It's no trouble, ma'am. Marcus is a remarkable kid. I'm glad I can help in any way I can." Sarah hesitated, then added, "He talks about you all the time now. Says you're teaching him to believe in himself again." Her voice cracked slightly, betraying the depth of her gratitude. "I don't know how to repay you for that." "You don't have to," David assured her. "Seeing Marcus happy is payment enough." From that moment on, Sarah became more supportive of their bond, appreciating the role David played in lifting her son's spirits. She even invited him inside occasionally, offering coffee or homemade cookies as a token of thanks. These interactions helped break down barriers within the community, showing others that kindness transcended appearances and preconceived notions. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to grow more confident under David's guidance. With each passing week, he spoke more freely, stuttering less frequently as he gained self-assurance. His drawings improved too, becoming bolder and more expressive. David encouraged him to share his work with classmates, though Marcus remained wary of their reactions. "What if they laugh?" he asked during one of their sessions. "They might," David admitted honestly. "But not everyone will, and those who do, their opinions don't matter. What matters is how you feel about your art and yourself." Marcus mulled over these words, letting them sink in. Though fear still lingered, he resolved to take small steps toward facing his insecurities. One day he showed one of his sketches to a teacher, who praised it enthusiastically. Another time he left a drawing on a classmate's desk as a gesture of friendship. To his surprise, the classmate smiled and thanked him, sparking a brief but meaningful conversation. These victories, though minor, fueled Marcus's determination to keep moving forward. With David by his side, cheering him on every step of the way, he began to see glimmers of hope breaking through the darkness that had clouded his life for so long. As autumn gave way to winter, the bond between David and Marcus deepened. They weren't just mentor and mentee, they were friends, united by shared experiences and mutual understanding. David often reflected on how much Marcus had taught him, that resilience wasn't about hiding pain but embracing vulnerability. In return, Marcus learned that scars, whether visible or invisible, didn't define a person's worth. Their journey was far from over, but already the seeds of change had been planted, not just in Marcus's life, but in the lives of those around them. Together they proved that compassion and connection could bridge even the widest divides, transforming hearts and minds along the way. As winter approached, the air grew colder, and frost began to coat the ground each morning. Despite the biting chill, Officer David Grayson continued his visits with Marcus, determined to help the boy conquer his fears and build confidence. Their bond had grown stronger with every passing week, but David knew that true progress required stepping outside their comfort zone. He wanted Marcus to face his challenges head-on, not just for himself, but also to inspire others who might be struggling. Silently one evening, as they sat together on the porch steps of Marcus's building, David brought up an idea he'd been thinking about for some time. "Marcus," he began, his tone thoughtful, "have you ever thought about speaking in front of people, like at a community event or something?" Marcus froze, his eyes widening in panic. No way," he stammered. "I can't do that. What if I mess up? What if they laugh?" David nodded, acknowledging the fear behind Marcus's words. "I get it. Public speaking is scary, even for me sometimes. But here's the thing. When we face our fears, we grow stronger. And besides, your story could really help other kids who feel like you do." Marcus frowned, unconvinced. But why would anyone care about me? "Because you're brave," David replied firmly. "You've gone through so much, and yet you keep going. That takes courage. People need to hear that. It reminds them they're not alone." Though Marcus still seemed hesitant, David didn't push him further that night. Instead, he planted the idea in the boy's mind, hoping it would take root over time. Over the next few days, he gently revisited the topic, encouraging Marcus to imagine how powerful it would feel to share his journey with others. Slowly but surely, Marcus began to consider the possibility. To prepare Marcus for this daunting task, David devised a plan. They started small, practicing speeches in private during their meetings. At first, Marcus stumbled over his words, his voice barely audible. But David remained patient, offering gentle corrections and reminding him to breathe deeply whenever he felt overwhelmed. "You don't have to be perfect," David assured him. "Just speak from your heart." As the weeks went by, Marcus's delivery improved. He practiced in front of a mirror, mimicking David's calm demeanor and steady gaze. Occasionally, Sarah, Marcus's mother, joined their sessions, cheering him on from the sidelines. Her presence gave Marcus an extra boost of confidence, knowing she believed in him too. Finally, after weeks of preparation, the day arrived. A local community center was hosting a youth event called Voices of Tomorrow, where children were invited to share their stories, talents, or dreams with an audience. David had arranged for Marcus to participate, ensuring he felt supported every step of the way. On the morning of the event, Marcus woke up feeling a mix of excitement and dread. His stomach churned as he imagined standing on stage, surrounded by strangers. What if I forget everything?" he asked nervously as David picked him up in his patrol car. "You won't," David said confidently. "And even if you do, it's okay. The important part is that you're trying. That's what makes you a hero." When they arrived at the community center, Marcus clung to David's arm as they entered the bustling hall. Colorful decorations adorned the walls and rows of chairs filled the room. Parents, teachers, and neighbors mingled excitedly, chatting about the performances to come. Seeing the crowd made Marcus's knees wobble, but David stayed by his side, offering quiet reassurance. Backstage, while waiting for his turn, Marcus paced anxiously. Other participants rehearsed their acts nearby. Some sang songs, others recited poems, but Marcus couldn't focus on anything except the knot tightening in his chest. Sensing his distress, David knelt down to his level. "Remember why you're doing this," he said softly. "You're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for every kid out there who feels invisible. You've got this." Taking a deep breath, Marcus nodded. When his name was called, he stepped onto the stage, his legs trembling beneath him. The spotlight blinded him momentarily, and the sea of faces staring back felt overwhelming. For a moment he considered running off, but then he caught sight of David standing near the back of the room, giving him a thumbs up. Gathering all his strength, Marcus gripped the microphone tightly and began. "Hi," he stammered, his voice shaky at first. My name is Marcus." Pausing to steady himself, he glanced at the audience again. This time, instead of focusing on their stares, he imagined he was talking directly to David. With newfound determination, he continued, I'm here to tell you about something hard, but also something good." Over the next few minutes, Marcus shared his story. He spoke about being teased at school, about feeling worthless because of his stutter, and about the loneliness that consumed him. He described meeting Officer Grayson and how the scarred policeman had taught him to believe in himself again. By the end of his speech, Marcus's voice had grown steadier, his confidence shining through. The audience erupted into applause, rising to their feet in admiration. Tears streamed down Marcus's cheeks as he stepped off the stage. David greeted him with a proud smile, pulling him into a warm hug. "You did it," he whispered. "I'm so proud of you." The ripple effects of Marcus's speech spread far beyond that single evening. News of his bravery reached the ears of teachers, parents, and students across the town. Classmates who once mocked him now approached him with apologies, admitting they hadn't realized how hurtful their actions had been. Teachers praised Marcus's courage, using his story as an example of resilience during classroom discussions. Even strangers began stopping him on the street to offer kind words or congratulations. For Marcus, the transformation was profound. No longer did he shrink away from attention. Instead, he embraced it, recognizing the power of vulnerability. He started participating more actively in class, raising his hand to answer questions despite occasional stutters. When peers struggled with their own insecurities, Marcus offered encouragement, drawing from his own experiences to uplift them. Meanwhile, David watched with pride as Marcus blossomed into a confident young leader. Their friendship had become a cornerstone of both their lives, proving that compassion could ignite change in unexpected ways. People in the community no longer saw David as merely the officer with the scarred face. They admired him for the impact he'd had on Marcus and indirectly on everyone else. One afternoon, as David and Marcus walked through the park together, they noticed a group of older boys playing basketball. Recognizing them as some of Marcus's former bullies, David tensed slightly, ready to intervene if necessary. Sure enough, one of the boys spotted Marcus and shouted, "Hey, look who's here, the stuttering loser." Marcus flinched, memories of past taunts flooding back. But before he could react, David placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Let me handle this," he murmured. Approaching the group calmly, David introduced himself and asked if they'd like to join him and Marcus for a game. Initially, the boys hesitated, unsure what to make of the scarred officer. However, David's humor and friendly demeanor quickly put them at ease. As they played, laughter replaced hostility, and barriers began to crumble. By the end of the game, the boys apologized to Marcus, acknowledging the harm their words had caused. It was a turning point, not just for Marcus, but for the entire community. Conversations shifted, empathy grew, and people began seeing each other differently, recognizing that everyone carried scars, whether visible or hidden. Through it all, David and Marcus stood side by side, a testament to the transformative power of understanding and compassion. Their journey was far from over, but already they had sparked a wave of change that would leave a lasting legacy in their small town. The weeks following Marcus's speech at the community center brought a whirlwind of changes, not just for him, but for the entire town. His story resonated deeply with people, sparking conversations about kindness, acceptance, and the importance of standing up for one another. Teachers began incorporating lessons on empathy into their classrooms, encouraging students to think twice before teasing or excluding others. Parents praised Marcus's courage during family dinners, using his example to teach their own children about resilience. Even local newspapers wrote articles celebrating Marcus's bravery and highlighting Officer David Grayson's role in helping him find his voice. For Marcus, life felt lighter than it ever had before. The weight of loneliness that once pressed down on him seemed to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of belonging. Classmates who used to mock him now greeted him warmly in the hallways, some even asking if they could join him during recess. Though he still stuttered occasionally, Marcus no longer feared speaking up. Instead, he embraced his uniqueness, realizing it was part of what made him special. He started sharing his artwork more openly, pinning his sketches to the bulletin board at school, and leaving copies of his stories in the library for others to read. Each time someone complimented his work, his confidence grew a little more. David, too, noticed a shift in how people treated him. Strangers who once avoided eye contact now smiled and waved when they saw him patrolling the streets. Some even approached him to express gratitude for the impact he'd had on Marcus, and indirectly, on the entire community. One elderly woman stopped him outside the grocery store one day, tears in her eyes as she said, "You've reminded us all what it means to care for one another. Thank you." Despite the growing admiration, David remained humble. He didn't see himself as a hero. He simply believed he was doing his job, helping those who needed support. Yet, deep down, he couldn't deny feeling proud of how far Marcus had come. Their friendship had become a beacon of hope, proving that compassion could bridge divides and heal wounds. As winter deepened, snow blanketed the town, transforming it into a serene wonderland. Children built snowmen in the park, their laughter echoing through the frosty air. On one particularly cold afternoon, David decided to take Marcus sledding, a tradition from his own childhood. They bundled up in thick coats, scarves, and gloves before heading to a nearby hill, where kids gathered to race down slopes on colorful sleds. At first, Marcus hesitated, unsure about sliding headfirst down the icy incline. "What if I fall?" he asked nervously, gripping the edges of the sled. "You'll probably fall," David admitted with a chuckle. "But guess what? Falling is half the fun. Besides, I'll be right here to catch you if you need me." With that reassurance, Marcus climbed onto the sled, his heart pounding with anticipation. As he pushed off and soared downhill, wind rushing past his face, he let out an exhilarated laugh. For a few glorious seconds, all his worries melted away, replaced by pure joy. When he reached the bottom, breathless and grinning, David cheered loudly. "See, told you it'd be worth it." They spent hours sledding together, laughing until their cheeks hurt and their fingers turned numb. It was moments like these, simple, carefree, and full of laughter, that strengthened their bond even further. To Marcus, David wasn't just a mentor or protector. He was a friend who understood him completely, someone who celebrated his victories, and comforted him during tough times. Back at school, Marcus continued to thrive. Inspired by his success at the community event, he decided to enter an art contest sponsored by the city. The theme was Hope for Tomorrow, and Marcus immediately knew what he wanted to create. Over several days, he worked tirelessly on a painting that depicted two figures walking side by side under a bright sun. One figure was unmistakably David, his scarred face rendered with striking detail. The other was Marcus himself, smiling confidently despite the challenges behind them. In the background, vibrant colors swirled together, representing dreams and possibilities stretching endlessly into the horizon. When the day of the award ceremony arrived, Marcus felt a mix of excitement and nerves. He wore his best clothes, a neatly pressed shirt and slacks borrowed from his cousin, and carried his framed painting carefully as David accompanied him to the event. The auditorium buzzed with energy, filled with families, teachers, and local officials eager to celebrate the young artist's talents. As the winners were announced, Marcus held his breath, clutching David's hand tightly. When the judge called his name as the runner-up, the room erupted in applause. Beaming with pride, Marcus walked to the stage to accept his prize, a certificate and a small trophy. Holding the microphone, he managed to say, Thank you, to everyone, and especially, to Officer Grayson, he's my hero." The audience cheered again, many wiping away tears as they watched Marcus dedicate his achievement to David. Backstage afterward, David pulled Marcus into a tight hug, his own eyes misty. "You earned this, Marcus," he whispered. "Every bit of it." Their journey wasn't without its challenges, however. One evening, while playing basketball at the park, Marcus encountered some older boys who hadn't quite shaken their habit of teasing. They mocked his stutter and laughed at his attempts to shoot hoops, causing Marcus to retreat in frustration. Seeing this, David intervened, but not in the way anyone expected. Rather than confronting the boys angrily, he invited them to join him and Marcus for a friendly game. At first, the boys hesitated, wary of the scarred officer. But David's lighthearted jokes and genuine interest in getting to know them broke the ice. As they played, competitiveness gave way to camaraderie, and soon the boys were cheering each other on instead of trading insults. By the end of the game, they apologized to Marcus, admitting they hadn't realized how much their words hurt. It was a powerful lesson, for both the boys and the adults watching, that understanding often begins with connection. By spring, Marcus had transformed into a confident, outgoing young boy who no longer shied away from sharing his thoughts or dreams. With David's guidance, he learned to embrace his imperfections, recognizing that they were part of what made him unique. Together, they proved that scars, whether physical, emotional, or social, didn't define a person's worth. What truly mattered was how one chose to rise above adversity and inspire others along the way. Their story became a symbol of hope in the community, reminding everyone that true strength lies not in hiding our flaws, but in facing them head-on. And though life would undoubtedly present new challenges, Marcus and David faced them side by side, bound by a friendship forged in compassion and trust. Through their journey, they taught an entire town that kindness has the power to change lives, and sometimes it starts with something as simple as believing in someone when no one else does. As spring arrived, the town began to bloom with new life. Trees sprouted fresh leaves, flowers pushed through the thawing soil, and the air carried a sense of renewal. For Marcus and Officer David Grayson, this season marked not just the changing weather but also a profound transformation in their lives. Their friendship had become a cornerstone of hope for many, inspiring others to embrace vulnerability and kindness. One sunny afternoon, as they strolled through the park, Marcus turned to David with an idea that had been brewing in his mind. "Officer Grayson," he said hesitantly, "I want to start a club." David raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A club? What kind of club?" "A art and story club," Marcus explained, his voice growing more confident. For kids like me, who feel different. We can draw and write together and maybe show our work at school or somewhere else." David's face lit up with pride. "That's an incredible idea, Marcus. You're already thinking about how to help others. I'm sure lots of kids would love to join." With David's encouragement, Marcus approached his teacher, Mrs. Thompson, to propose the idea. She was thrilled by his initiative and offered to host the club after school twice a week. Word spread quickly among students, and soon a group of eager participants gathered in the classroom, armed with sketchbooks, pencils, and notebooks. Under Marcus's leadership, guided gently by David, who often joined the sessions, the club became a safe space where creativity flourished and friendships blossomed. Each meeting began with Marcus sharing one of his own stories or sketches, followed by a discussion about overcoming challenges. He encouraged the members to express themselves freely, reminding them that their voices mattered. One girl, shy and withdrawn, created a beautiful painting of her family. Another boy wrote a heartfelt poem about losing his dog. Through these shared experiences, the children realized they weren't alone in their struggles, and that art could be a powerful way to heal and connect. Meanwhile, David continued to expand his efforts beyond Marcus, recognizing the broader impact he could have on the community. He started organizing workshops at the local library, teaching kids about empathy, resilience, and the importance of standing up against bullying. His sessions were interactive, filled with activities designed to foster understanding and teamwork. One popular exercise involved having participants pair up and describe each other using only positive words, a simple yet effective reminder of the power of kindness. Parents began attending these workshops too, eager to learn how they could support their children better. Many expressed gratitude to David, saying his lessons helped them see their kids in a new light. "You've changed the way we talk to our son," one father admitted during a break. "We used to focus so much on fixing his problems that we forgot to celebrate his strengths. Thank you for showing us how." David smiled humbly, deflecting praise as always. "It's not me. It's all of you. Change happens when people come together and care for one another." Despite the progress, there were still moments of difficulty. One evening, while walking home from the park, Marcus and David encountered a group of teenagers loitering near the bus stop. They exchanged taunts about David's scars and Marcus's stutter, their laughter cutting through the quiet night. Marcus clenched his fists, anger bubbling inside him, but David placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "Let's keep moving," David suggested softly. "They're not worth our time." But later that night, lying in bed, Marcus couldn't shake off the encounter. He replayed the cruel words in his head, wondering if he'd ever truly escape judgment. The next day, he confided in David, tears streaming down his face. "Well, why do they have to be so mean? Well, will it ever stop?" David sighed, sitting beside him. "I wish I could tell you it will, Marcus. But the truth is, some people might always say hurtful things. What matters is how we respond to them. Do we let their words define us? Or do we prove them wrong by living our best lives?" Marcus thought about this for a long moment before nodding slowly. "I don't want to let them win." "That's right," David said firmly. "You keep shining, Marcus. Show them, and yourself, that your worth isn't determined by what they think." Inspired by David's words, Marcus decided to channel his frustration into something constructive. He worked tirelessly on a new project, a mural for the community center. The design featured diverse figures holding hands beneath a radiant sun, symbolizing unity and acceptance. With permission from the town council, Marcus recruited volunteers from his art and story club to help paint it. Together, they spent weekends bringing the vision to life, their brushes adding color and meaning to the once blank wall. On the day of the unveiling, the entire town gathered to witness the masterpiece. As the sheet covering the mural was pulled away, gasps of admiration rippled through the crowd. People marveled at its beauty and message, snapping photos and applauding enthusiastically. Mayor Peterson stepped forward to thank Marcus and his team, calling the mural a testament to the power of creativity and compassion. Standing beside David, Marcus felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he fully understood the ripple effect of kindness. One act of courage could inspire countless others. And though the mural was finished, its impact would endure, reminding everyone who passed by that differences should be celebrated, not feared. As summer approached, Marcus and David found themselves reflecting on how far they'd come. What had started as a chance meeting on a cold autumn evening had blossomed into a transformative journey that touched countless lives. Marcus no longer doubted his abilities or hid his talents. He spoke confidently, drew boldly, and dreamed fearlessly. David, too, had grown, finding renewed purpose in his role as a police officer and mentor. Their bond remained unshakable, built on mutual respect and trust. Whether playing basketball, working on art projects, or simply talking about life, they cherished every moment together. To Marcus, David was more than a friend. He was a hero who had shown him the strength within himself. And to David, Marcus was proof that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental change. Yet neither of them saw themselves as extraordinary. They believed anyone could make a difference if they chose to care. That belief became the foundation of their legacy. A reminder that true courage lies not in hiding our scars, but in embracing them and using them to uplift others. As the days grew longer and warmer, Marcus and David looked toward the future with hope. They knew challenges would arise, but they faced them side by side, united by a friendship that transcended appearances and circumstances. Together, they had transformed a small town, and perhaps in some small way, the world. As summer reached its peak, the warmth of the sun seemed to mirror the warmth spreading through the hearts of the townspeople. The bond between Marcus and Officer David Grayson had not only changed their lives but also left an indelible mark on the entire community. Their story was no longer just about a scarred policeman and a stuttering boy. It had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of compassion. One Saturday morning, Marcus woke up with excitement bubbling inside him. It was the day of the annual town fair, an event that brought everyone together for games, music, and food. This year, however, there was something extra special planned, a showcase featuring artwork from local children, including pieces created by members of Marcus's Art and Story Club. The mural at the community center had sparked a wave of creativity across the town, inspiring kids and adults alike to express themselves through art. David arrived early to help set up the display, carrying easels and arranging paintings under colorful tents. He watched as Marcus darted around, guiding his friends on where to place their work. Each piece told a unique story, some joyful, some reflective, all deeply personal. One drawing depicted a family reunited after years apart. Another showed a child reaching out to a lonely friend. Together, they formed a tapestry of emotions that captured the essence of the town's spirit. When the fair officially began, crowds gathered around the art exhibit, marveling at the talent on display. Parents snapped photos of their children, standing proudly beside their creations while strangers exchanged heartfelt compliments. At the center of it all stood Marcus, beaming with pride. For so long he had hidden his art, fearing judgment. Now, he reveled in the knowledge that his work, and the work of his peers, was valued and appreciated. Mayor Peterson took the stage to deliver a speech, praising the young artists for their contributions. "Today, we celebrate more than art," he announced, his voice echoing through the microphone. "We celebrate courage, creativity, and the power of community. None of this would have been possible without two remarkable individuals, Marcus and Officer Grayson." The crowd erupted into applause, turning to look at Marcus and David, who stood side by side near the front. Marcus blushed, unused to being the center of attention, but David gave him a reassuring pat on the back. "You deserve every bit of this," he whispered. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fairgrounds, Marcus and David found a quiet spot to sit and reflect. They shared a plate of funnel cake, laughing as powdered sugar dusted their fingers and cheeks. The noise of the fair faded into the background, leaving them alone with their thoughts. "I never thought I'd see the day when people cheered for me instead of making fun," Marcus said softly, staring at the distant Ferris wheel lights twinkling like stars. "It feels weird, but good." David nodded, sipping from a cup of lemonade. "That's because you've earned it, Marcus. You worked hard, stayed true to yourself, and inspired others along the way. That's something to be proud of." Marcus glanced at David, gratitude shining in his eyes. "And none of it would have happened without you. You believed in me when no one else did. You taught me that scars don't matter, not the ones on your face or the ones inside." David smiled, touched by the sincerity in Marcus's words. "You know what? You've taught me just as much. You reminded me why I became a police officer in the first place, to help people feel safe and valued. Seeing you grow has made me realize how important it is to keep showing up, even when things get tough." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching fireworks light up the night sky. Explosions of red, blue, and green painted the darkness, accompanied by oohs and ahs from the crowd. Marcus leaned against David, feeling a deep sense of peace. For the first time in his life, he truly belonged. In the weeks that followed, Marcus continued to thrive. His confidence soared, and he embraced opportunities he once shied away from. When his teacher asked for volunteers to read aloud during class, Marcus raised his hand without hesitation, though his voice trembled occasionally. His classmates listened attentively, offering smiles and nods of encouragement. Afterward, several students approached him to say how much they admired his bravery. At home, Sarah noticed a remarkable change in her son. He laughed more often, spoke openly about his dreams, and even helped younger kids in the neighborhood with their homework. "He's like a different person," she told David during one of their conversations. "I can't thank you enough for everything you've done." "It's not just me," David replied modestly. "Marcus did the hard work. All I did was remind him of his own strength." Meanwhile, David's influence extended beyond Marcus. Inspired by his example, other officers in the department began prioritizing community engagement, organizing events and workshops to build trust and connection. The town council established a mentorship program pairing at-risk youth with supportive adults, ensuring that no child felt invisible or alone. Even the local newspaper ran a series of articles highlighting acts of kindness, celebrating the positive changes sweeping through the area. Despite the growing recognition, David remained grounded. He knew that true impact wasn't measured by accolades or headlines, but by the lives touched and transformed. Every time he saw a child smile, or heard someone call him Officer Grayson instead of the scarred cop, he felt a quiet satisfaction. His scars, once a source of pain, had become a testament to resilience, a reminder that beauty could emerge from adversity. As autumn returned, painting the trees with fiery hues, Marcus and David prepared for a new chapter. Marcus entered middle school, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Armed with his sketchbook and unwavering self-belief, he vowed to continue inspiring others through his art and actions. David, too, looked forward to mentoring more children, knowing that each interaction held the potential to spark change. Their friendship remained as strong as ever, rooted in mutual respect and shared experiences. Whether walking through the park, playing basketball, or simply talking about life, they cherished every moment together. To Marcus, David was a hero who had shown him the value of perseverance. And to David, Marcus was proof that kindness could heal wounds and ignite hope. A crisp October evening, as they sat on the porch steps of Marcus's building, David turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you remember the first time we met?" he asked. Marcus grinned, nodding. "Of course. I was sitting on the curb, scared and sad, and you came over and talked to me like I mattered." "You've always mattered, Marcus," David said gently. "Sometimes it takes someone else to remind us of that, just like you reminded me." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind born of understanding and gratitude. As the wind rustled the leaves and the streetlights flickered on, they sat together, content in the knowledge that their journey, though far from perfect, had made the world a little brighter. Through their friendship, Marcus and David proved that scars, whether visible or hidden, didn't define a person's worth. What truly mattered was how one chose to rise above adversity and inspire others along the way. Their story became a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that compassion and connection could bridge divides and transform lives. And though challenges would undoubtedly arise, they faced them side by side, united by a bond forged in empathy, trust, and love.